Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Jean Gallagher, just with Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better, and welcome. And I'm here with Denise DeGaulle. Hey, Denise.
Hey, Jean.
Hey, we're continuing our conversation on your interesting take on resolutions and how we should really look at these so much more differently than we do, because it's really a habit change. And I love what you want to talk about, because you're talking about asking for help. And that's not something that's usually on the, it's not on the bingo card for resolutions.
No, and this I think kind of, it comes along with resolutions, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, resolutions and what we should be or what we could be doing better in a couple of other episodes as well. But this one I think is really important because, we've been told forever, oh, you have to make a New Year's resolution. What's your New Year's resolution? This year I said, I'm done with these resolutions. They don't work for tons of reasons. So I decided, let's pick a theme. So we've been talking about what that theme is, right? My theme for the year is impact. What kind of impact that I want to have on myself, obviously, my husband, my family, my friends, my clients, and our audience, right? And what I realized in the last couple of weeks, that something is missing when we're creating this theme, whatever it is, impact, harmony, give it, whatever you've decided. What did you decide? Did you pick one?
A word, excuse me, a word?
Theme, yeah.
Decide.
Decide. Ha. So, okay, so this is interesting. So what I find is we've created these ideas now, this theme for the year, and it's ours. We've taken ownership of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But can we achieve it the way we want to on our own?
It's a good question. We think we should, because the ego takes over.
Absolutely. We think we should. Ha, there's that word. Trying to remove that word out of my vocabulary, because when we talk about, we should do this or I should do that, we kind of are pushing, it's kind of like getting pushed into doing something rather than like getting pulled to do something because it's something you want to do. Right. So when we do all these things by ourselves, one, it gets lonely. Two, you kind of lose momentum. And, three, you kind of all of a sudden go, wait, what did I start out to do anyway? And I'm doing this all by myself. Why am I doing that? So I have a client who, she's a friend actually. Sometimes I think I'm more her client than she is mine. But she used to own a fitness studio down in Florida. And when she first opened, she tried to manage everything herself. Now, she is in incredible shape. She loves this studio. And it was really what she always wanted to do. She did literally everything. She was teaching classes. She was marketing. She was cleaning the toilets, right? And eventually, the workload just was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't having fun anymore.
Right.
So what do you do in that situation? Do you close up shop? No, of course not. What do we do?
That's not why she got into it, though. She didn't get into it not to have fun.
Exactly. The same thing with our theme for the year. We didn't get into it not to have fun or not to succeed. So what we realized when I was talking to my friend Lisa is she was always that she's always been kind of that driver, type A personality. I can do anything, and she basically can. Whatever she's tried, she's succeeded at. What she realized at this point was trying to do it on her own was failing. However, when she asked for help, she got an assistant. She got paid someone to clean the studio every night. All of a sudden, she enjoyed what she was doing because she She was back to herself. She wasn't the jack of all trades. She was the amazing fitness pro that she had set out to be. So, why do you think we, as women, especially at this stage in our lives, um, the midlife stage, why do you think we do this? Like we feel we need to do this and we need to do it on our own.
I like to think that that was a rhetorical question.
Yes.
because I don't know that I have an answer, but I feel like I'm falling into this pattern, so I'm uncomfortable answering the question. But it gets to a point when we get to be of a certain age that we just like, well, it's just easier if I do it.
That is a big part of it because one, there's, letting go. Right. A lot of times you think, yeah, it's faster if I just do this, but it's faster if I do this and faster if I do this. And all of a sudden now you've got 10 things that'll be faster. But if you had taught one person how to do one of them, you could actually focus more. So when we ask for help, whether it's, asking our BFF to support us, be an accountability partner, if we hire an assistant, oh, God forbid, right? How many businesswomen do we know say, oh, I don't really have the money to hire an assistant? Well, if they hired the assistant, they'd have more money because they'd be focusing on the things that were important, right? And let's be real, at this stage in life, energy can be an issue. I don't have the same amount of energy I did at 53 and 3/4 than I did when I was 20. Still energetic and I still feel good. But let's be real, by 6 o'clock at night, I'm done. Where I used to be able to go, 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 go. I was the Energizer Bunny, right? Friends in college used to call me Perpetual Motion 2, because apparently I had a friend who was Perpetual Motion 1.
But doesn't it become the work smarter, not harder piece? And that's what you were talking about with your friend. She's working harder and she's working harder, but she's not working as smartly as she should be.
Exactly. So this is the time when, whether you've made a resolution, if you did, I recommend stepping back and creating a theme for the year. If you've already created that theme for the year, awesome. But now it's time to think, who do I need to support me to make sure this happens the way I want it to? So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Last thought. Success.
Please.
Success is not a solo journey. It's about sharing it with others.
What a great way to end that one. Thanks, Denise.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. This is Jean Gallagher, Discover Rising Tides, and I want to just take a moment to talk about my friend, Denise Segal. I am honored to call her as a friend, and I'm so grateful that she gives us her insight during our shows, each show, and talks about healthy living, eating real food. You hear Denise say, eat real food a lot. Well, she means it, and she knows what she's talking about. She is an amazing healthy living coach, curator at Living Healthy List. And if you ever have any questions about what is real food, why does it matter? How does that apply to me? How do I change? What do I need to do? How do I even create a healthy living shopping list? Make sure that you call her. She is your healthy living coach, and you can find her at healthylivinglist.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jean Gallagher, and welcome to Discover Rising Tides, How the Outside Makes the Inside Better. We're excited that you're here. And if you're listening to us out in podcast land and you'd like to see our happy faces, jump on over to YouTube, like and subscribe over there. We'd be glad to have you. And I want to welcome our guest today, Judith Richey. Judith, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity to share today. Thank you.
I'm excited, and as full disclosure, we've done this before because somebody, well, that would be me, forgot to hit the record button. And I know that everybody else that's experienced this level of communication has had that same faux pas. And so here we are, and we're going to reshare our conversation or whatever new conversation comes up with us today. So I'm excited for that. And before we dive in, Judith, give us a little bit about your background, and then we're going to get going.
Oh, thank you, Jean. I told Jean before we started today that I think this is going to be probably the most spectacular podcast either one of us have ever done because
See
we've had
that?
so many gremlins.
I know, right?
Really cute. I'm sitting where I'm sitting today because in 2008, I went through what we call a dark night of the soul experience. And it was just a wall that I hit in my life when I realized that the way I was doing life was not serving me. In fact, it
Mm,
was doing everything it could to destroy me physically, mentally, emotionally, um, you know, spiritually. And so I could have either kept going the way I was and probably ended up in a facility to work things out, or I
mhm,
could do what I did, which was step back from life for a little while and take a few months to do some self-directed healing. And so I chose option B. Um, it was really interesting because I said that to someone the other day and they said, well, how fascinating that you had the privilege of doing that. And I had
mm,
never considered that as a privilege because I was a very successful financial advisor at the time. And I
mhm,
was able to take advantage of leaving on a medical leave and still earning a very handsome salary for a year until I permanently disconnected from that company. Um, and so that kind of put an interesting take on it that I hadn't thought about it. So that there is some
mm,
privilege sometime associated with healing. And the work that I do now is a direct result of what I went through during that time and what I could not find for myself.
mm.
And so I have developed a program for other women and men, but primarily women who find themselves in that place and need some help.
It's fantastic. It's not fantastic that you went through that, but what's fantastic about it is that you're able to take those life experiences, sit back and understand, okay, what's working and what didn't work. And this looks like something needs to be fixed because I can't be the only one out there that's experienced this.
Yes, that is so prescient for you to make that comment. Um, Women share a collective journey.
Mm,
And what I have found is that we have been taught to not talk about what's not working for us in our
mm,
lives. And we used to just sweep everything under the rug, put on a happy face, pull up our big girl pants, pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, whatever terminology you want to use, and plow forward because women are kind of the glue that hold things together, right? And if it isn't working for your wife or your mom or your grandmother or your sister, oh, we don't talk about that. We
mhm,
just keep going. And one of the things that I love that's happening right now in our society is that women are finally starting to talk about menopause. And
mhm,
it's just fantastic because for so long we've whispered behind the closed doors about the change,
mhm,
and now women are demanding accountability from the medical
mhm.
community. They're sharing with each other. They're talking about this very natural phenomenon. And along with that, we have been able to open up the conversation about mental wellness, emotional wellness, healing, and working with ourselves at that level also that transcends just the physical.
Yeah, and I am so fortunate to have met Denise DeGaulle, and she is our menopause mentor, and she comes on every show and does a piece about just about that, and for her to be so vocal and to be a resource, so important. But you're right, and I think part of you had used the word privilege, which is true based upon what you went through, but I think the word that came to me is bravery.
Mm,
To
thank
be
you
able
for,
to make a
yeah,
change.
yeah, thank you
During,
for that.
yeah.
When I left my position as a financial advisor, when I took that leave, I felt like it was from a place of defeat and failure. And I really
Sure.
carried that around with me. It wasn't because I wasn't hitting the numbers. It wasn't because I wasn't doing what was expected. I was very successful, a six-figure earner, all the things. But God, I had insomnia and migraines, and my body hurt all the time, and my marriage was in the tank, and I was just a mess. And so I really felt like a failure. And, kind of like with the Scarlet Letter, I felt like I was walking around with this F on my chest that everybody could see what a failure I was. And it was when I was on a plane trip coming home from a conference And I was talking to the woman next to me in the seat who happened to be a life coach, and I didn't know what life coaches were at that time, and kind of told her what it was going on in my life. And she looked at me and said, "What gave you the strength and the courage to do that for yourself?"
Mm.
And you could have pushed me over with a feather when she said
Mhm.
that, because I had never looked at what I did advocating for myself as strength and courage. And now you put bravery with it. And
Mhm.
it is a place of strength and courage and bravery to recognize that it is okay to advocate for ourselves and to ask for that help. Yeah.
Mhm. And it becomes very difficult, especially as a female, because we all hold many different roles inside of the family. And when you put career into that mix, as well as family responsibilities, and if you happen to be a parent or you happen to be a spouse, and managing the household and all of those things together, it's not okay and it's not normal to say, I am successful, but I'm a hot mess and I need to pull back and step away. That's looked at so negatively, rather than acknowledging you are a success, but your body is telling you that something is out of sorts and out of whack, and the body is going to scream as loud as it needs to ensure that somebody hears the message.
That is so true. And for 3 years, I was screaming loudly, and
Mm.
no one in my purview got it.
Hmm.
And I kept telling my husband how unhappy I was. I just was like, this isn't working for me. And it was just like, well, when you reach this level, it'll all be okay. When you get here, it'll all be okay. And I was like, no, this isn't working for me. And finally, I was just like, I think I'm done with my marriage, and I'm definitely done with this career. The good news is the career went away and I kept the marriage. And this year we celebrate 24 years of marriage.
Oh,
And
congratulations.
thank you. We have intentionally worked on creating this beautiful life for ourselves. Now, just give you a little snippet of that today to tell you that things are possible. Um, I took my car to get detailed, and my husband took everything out of my car for me and put it in our garage. And I didn't know this. I thought everything was still in the garage. And I left to go to a meeting this morning, and I went through some rain, and I called him and I was like, "Oh yeah, I went through some rain and I didn't have my umbrella, but fortunately when I got there it wasn't raining." He goes, "Oh no, you do have your umbrella in your car." And I went, "What?" And he goes, "Oh, I put everything back in your car for you."
Oh.
And I didn't even know that. And I thanked him and I hung up. And then I got really all the warm fuzzies. And I called him back and I said, "I'm literally sitting here driving with tears in my eyes because of what you did for me, and what a loving thing that was, and how loved I feel, and how my heart is just so full of love for you doing that little small thing for me." And I just wanted to let
Mhm.
you know that we weren't there, you know, 15 years ago at all.
Mm.
We
That's
weren't there.
amazing. And
And
it's also amazing that you took the space to acknowledge the act.
it's just a small thing, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that helped him and it helped me. And, in the middle of all of this, there's a couple of phrases that I want to talk about that get used all the time when you're talking about personal development and healing, and that's broken and fixed. And, the first thing I say to people is, you're not broken and you don't need to be fixed.
Mhm.
We carry wounds at a level that transcend the conscious and the subconscious. I call those soul wounds. And those can come from things that we've experienced in this lifetime. They can be familial things, they can be generational. And if you ascribe to this, they can even be things that you bring into this lifetime with you that have not had a chance to heal prior to this lifetime. That's the level that I work on. And I didn't even know all of that back in 2008. And so
Mm.
as I have studied and gotten all my certifications and become a practitioner, this has been something that I've realized. And we create patterns in our lives based on our experience, based on our generational and familiar patterns that cause our brain to react a certain way, right? So let's talk about the neuroscience of this, because that's very prevalent to self and personal development. It's something that isn't talked about very much. We're wired for safety. That's just a fact about humans. We have that fight, flight, or freeze reflex built into us. It's called the autonomic reflex. And we can actually flip into that state in nanoseconds anytime we feel like
Mhm.
we're under threat and not safe. In our world today, we constantly feel under threat. Every
Mhm.
social media post, the news, emails, listening to podcasts, reading things, you know, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And so we have this constant state of fight, flight, or freeze, which causes our cortisol to raise, which causes our brain to stay in a constant state of alarm. And we have very few tools that help us come out of that. It usually takes about 12 to 24 hours for us to go from the autonomic response to the rest and digest response. Okay. And so we can use different tools and resources to accelerate that so that we don't stay in that heightened alarm state.
Mhm.
But we're not taught those. We don't talk about that kind of stuff. We just think that, oh, living stressed and having pain in my neck and having migraines and not being able to sleep and
Mm.
eating things that are bad for me and drinking alcohol and doing these things that alleviate what I think is causing the stress are normal. And that's really not normal for us.
Mm. And getting to a point where we can, what's really difficult is finding the right person to talk to that can recognize these things. But I have a question. I want to go back just a smidge because a word has come up a couple of times, and I think it's interesting, and it's all connected. But I want to ask you a question if you don't mind, and then we'll get back to this other piece because I
Oh,
think it
sure.
interconnects. That you had named this time of your life in 2008
Mm,
as the dark night of the soul, which
yes.
I want to know why. But then you also, now you're talking about soul wounds. So this word that's so important has in just a few minutes has come up a couple of times. And I think it's important to acknowledge that as well, because there's the neuroscience and then there's this other piece, and they're so interconnected. And
Yes.
in our society, we want to keep everything separate, but I want to kind of bring them together.
I love that you caught that. The soul is an interesting concept, and the way I'm going to describe it is the deep wisdom you have within yourself. Okay. Your soul knows everything about you, your entire existence. And yes, I'm talking about the fact that we're eternal souls, that we have an eternal existence. There's a school of thought, and I used to not ascribe to this, and now I'm all in on it, that we have opportunities over and over and over again to grow in wisdom and knowledge as our soul grows through this eternal existence. Um, and it's because of that knowledge that we have the ability to tap into it on a
Mhm.
different level. Some people, okay, so I have beautiful tools, beautiful gifts that I've been given of intuition. I can see, hear, feel, and know things about myself and other people. And I teach all of my clients how to access their soul's wisdom if their intuition is not attuned. And I use a specific technique called muscle testing.
Mhm.
If you've ever been to a kinesiologist or a chiropractor, a lot of times they use it. They'll have you hold your arm out and they'll press down on your arm, or they'll press on certain areas of your body muscles to see how they're reacting. Well, in the spiritual world, in the mindfulness world, you can use muscle testing as a way to get a physical answer from your soul. And so
Mm.
I teach all of my clients how to muscle test. It's very simple once you are completely calibrated, and you just get yes, no answers. So if you're
Mhm.
working through something, you can tap into your soul's wisdom and get those answers without having to sit around wondering what's going on, what's wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. You are given an opportunity to connect with yourself at a different level.
Mm. And so my mind is going in like four different directions. The I think that the can we break down the soul wounds part for just a second?
Sure.
because I
Sure.
think that that's important. And things, as we're talking about the deep wisdom, and that in your soul knows what's going on, that's so intangible, but things that are happening to us leads a kind of like a GPS in reverse. It leads a roadmap of where we've been, the positive and the negative. And you're talking about these soul wounds, and don't they need to be recognized in order to shift changes going forward?
100% they need to be recognized. Um, when I, so I'm going to answer your question about Dark Night of the Soul first, okay?
Okay.
That is not my term that I coined. That is a term that is used. There's a fabulous book for those of you who like to read called Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Mm,
And it's a tome. I mean, it's several hundred pages long. But what it is it's different hmm, parables and fairy tales from
mhm,
different cultures that describe the woman's journey. And in the book, it gives a breakdown of what the story is about, what the parable is about, and talks about it. And I don't know if it was Eckhart Tolle or someone else who coined this phrase, Dark Night of the Soul, but it's where we just go inward, and
mhm,
everything in our life has just gone to hell in a handbasket. And it's an opportunity for us to get very introspective and go in and start looking at what's going on, what are the patterns that we see, what are the healing opportunities for us. And I did that all by myself in 2008 and 2009 because I could not find any direction. So I sat on my couch for about 6 months through this dark night experience, me and God, and crying and reading, and just figured it out. And then then different resources were started to be revealed to me. So that's the dark night of the soul. Now, this is where it gets a little woo. So, just hang with me, okay? Um, if you can wrap your head around the fact that our soul is an eternal being, we have an eternal existence in our soul, and we bring forward experiences into this lifetime, and the lifetimes that we have give our soul opportunity to learn things, to grow things, right? When we have not healed wounds that we've had in the past, and we bring them forward into this lifetime, they're going to affect our human existence. And so those are what I call the soul wounds. And those are the things that, you see patterns of behavior, you see yourself reacting certain ways, you can kind of start figuring out your triggers. Um, and you're like, well, intellectually, I don't choose this, but for some reason I keep showing up a certain
mhm,
way. Well, maybe it's because when you were 3, your little brother locked you in a closet, and that created a soul wound at that point of abandonment or of abuse of a certain type. Or maybe your parents didn't come rescue you, so you learned how to distrust authority. All these things are soul wounds. And I'm purposely not using the word trauma because I think trauma gets tossed around a whole
mhm,
lot as a catch-all phrase. And I think there's different levels. I don't think, I know there's different
mhm,
levels of how we experience trauma and how it dissects in our life. Like it can cause the inner critic to really be loud. It can cause limiting beliefs. It can cause sabotage patterns. Phobias even are part of a trauma cycle. So with the muscle testing, we have an opportunity to explore where those soul wounds lie, and then
mm,
use my methodology to clear, and here's the important words, the energetic residue of those wounds. Not
mm,
erase them, not ignore them, not say they never happened, but we clear the energetic residue that we're still living with. Now, let me connect some dots for you, okay?
mhm,
I'm going to bring the neuroscience back into it. So, on the spiritual side, we talk about the energetic residue. In
mhm,
neuroscience, we talk about the default mode network. The default mode network is those knee-jerk responses that we just default to in different situations. they're tied to each other. They're part of the same pattern. And so it's necessary to recognize the patterns and clear the energetic residue for us to completely take care of those.
And this process is lengthy.
No, and yes.
Yeah.
Right, right. You know,
Hmm.
I'm a lifelong healer of
Hmm.
myself. Right now, I'm dealing with something that is fascinating, which is about not having to hustle all the time.
Mm.
I was meditating in December on what was coming for 2026, and one of the things I'm developing is an art developing art. Um, Maybe I'm going to sell art, maybe I'm not, maybe I'm just going to keep giving my art away. I don't know. But one of the things that I heard in this meditation in December was you don't have to hustle and you can take time and enjoy your art in 2026. Okay, so um, I'm unwinding from hustle culture.
Mm.
My nervous system is recalibrating.
Hmm.
I'm almost 67. You would think, you would think somebody at 67 might have it all figured out. Nope, this is new.
No.
I'm recalibrating at 66, of what life looks like for me. So yeah, it can be the work is immediately effective
Hmm.
and I hate this phraseology, but so many people relate to it. The layers of the onion that you peel back, that's what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could use the word despise and that description at this in the same sentence, but it is true that it creates this picture that people relate or it resonates and but yes, I totally understand. Um, so the as I love the part where you're talking about we're not broken and we're not fixed. And this what I'm feeling, the word that comes up, especially when you're talking about your experience and coming into this year is transition.
Mm. I
That comes
like
up
that
to me.
word. Yeah, I like that word. I use transformation.
Mm,
And here's the reason why. Uh, as I've done this for the last 15 years, I've recognized that there's actually 4 steps in the process. And so I've called them the Richey method. Okay.
hmm.
And I'm not a licensed psychologist or a psychotherapist. I am a certified practitioner. And I recognize that therapy has a place in our lives. It's a great place to go get awareness. It's a
Hmm.
great place to talk things out, to have someone ask you probing questions, and for you to be in a safe space to just talk where nobody else is going to listen to you say those things, right? So that's
Hmm.
actually the first step in my process is awareness. But I approach it a little bit differently because what I do is I approach it through muscle testing and asking lots of inquiring questions, having those inquiring conversations with my client, answering through muscle testing. Well, in that process, then we go to the second step, which is breakthrough. And that's the ahas, the light bulb moments. This is where a lot of people think, oh, I've got it now. I can go on. What they're missing is that transition, that transformation, which is
Hmm.
the actual healing work. Okay. And this is where I like to help them understand and connect the dots with the neuroscience and then bring in the spiritual and energetic resources and tools so that they can develop those on their own, learn them from me, and then have those as part of their toolbox to be able to do this for themselves going forward, which is the last step, which is embodiment and integration. So my view is let's figure out what's underneath everything. Let's work on getting the energy behind that cleared, healed, released, and then let me teach you these tools and resources so that you can use those on your own going forward.
Mm. So does somebody need to have such a life-changing moment as you did in 2008 to find relief or comfort or assistance through this transformation? Or what do you find are triggers that somebody says, oh, I really need to talk to somebody and Judith is the right person?
That's a great question, and thank you for breaking it down that way. The answer is no, you don't have to have such a huge life event like I did. I had a woman come to me recently who's very spiritual and has her own gifts, and yet she realizes there's a few things she couldn't get to on her own.
Hmm.
And so one of her desires was to figure out what was causing her so much anxiety when she had to stand up in front of a group of students and speak. And so we're working on that. And,
Hmm.
that's not I'm going to sit on the couch for 6 months about it kind of thing. That was just like, I want to be able to do my job more efficiently and effectively. And so it's anytime you realize there's something just not working in this situation,
Mm.
and I can't put my finger on what it is.
Or a disconnect.
Yes, that too.
Hmm. So moving along in whatever you're doing and it's going really well, but there all of a sudden there seems to be something there's a hitch in the step, or there's just something that's unidentifiable that feels like it's a block, but maybe I'm just making it up.
No, and you're
But that
right.
could
You're
be,
right
but I
about
mean, and
that.
in your head you
Yeah.
go, well, maybe I'm just imagining this.
Right. I'll give you a couple examples. I had one client who came to me and he kept having the same reoccurring nightmare. He'd had it
Mm.
for decades. And we got in and we did the work and we figured out what was underneath the nightmare. We cleared it. He doesn't have the nightmare anymore.
Wow.
You know? And then I had another woman, and this gets into the woo a little bit too. Um, in relationships with men, she kept feeling like she was suffocated. Well, what we identified was that in a past life, she had indeed been suffocated and killed by a husband.
Oh
And
my.
so that was one of those soul wounds that she had carried into this lifetime that we had an opportunity to heal. She doesn't have that anymore.
That's amazing. So one of the things that we had talked about way, way before was finding a source of purpose.
Mm,
And this is all interwoven in everything that you're talking about, isn't it?
yes.
And I was talking to somebody else on a podcast a while ago, and she was she helps people become published because she's an author and she had to self-publish, and now she helps people go through that process. But she was talking about the anxiety that she was having, the severe anxiety that she was having, and one of the things that helped her through that process was finding a purpose. And
Hmm.
when I had that conversation with her, that word just seemed to resonate. And you had brought it up too. And I wonder if we as a society, we're so, like you already talked about it, we're so, everything is just falling on top of us. And it's easy for that source of purpose, or, who am I? What am I? To either get buried or ignored with all the
Yeah.
noise.
Yes. And, factor in, okay, so let's just look at a woman's life, right?
Hmm.
When a woman is born and she's a little baby girl, right? What do people say about her first off? Oh, she's so pretty. She's so cute. Look at how precious she is. So from the get-go, girls are domesticated, to use a term from Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the Four
Hmm.
Agreements, domesticated to slot into a certain role. Boys
Hmm.
have it happen to them too, but I'm going to speak to women, right? And so when children are growing up, when they're about two, they learn the word no, and they learn to advocate for their own self. Okay.
Hmm.
And then we teach them not to because it doesn't suit our purposes. But a
Hmm.
2-year-old is really clear about what they do and don't want in life, right? And then we teach them, no, that's not appropriate. And girls are not allowed to be aggressive or
Hmm.
to speak up for themselves or to be assertive because they're considered bitches as they grow up. Women who are assertive and aggressive and who
Hmm.
advocate for themselves, that's the slot that they're put in. And then we don't ask children, who are you? We ask them, what do you want to be? So we're
Mm.
already creating, we're human doings, not
Mhm.
who
Human
we are. We're
beings.
not talking to them about who we are. And so it's interesting to step back from that when we look at our life purpose. And, we can dissect that a couple of different ways. Sometimes we have a purpose that doesn't pay the mortgage, and so we have to go have something that does. And sometimes we're fortunate enough to be able to put the two of them together.
Mhm.
And I know plenty of people who do one thing to pay the mortgage and then have their causes and their different charities and philanthropy and work that they do on that side to fulfill their purpose.
Mhm. And
And by
it,
the
yes.
way, I have a methodology I take people through. It's about an hour-long process to help them find out what their soul's purpose is.
Mm. And what a great resource, because there's not a lot in society that speaks to that. Well, there isn't really anything.
No, there
And,
isn't.
no, and also the challenge is that we're so career driven.
Yes,
We identify ourselves by our career, because when you go to meet somebody and the first question is, what do you do?
right.
And that can that moment, that self-defining moment, that person that's asking the question is then going to create an opinion of you based upon your answer, of how they feel, whether what you're doing, what your career is sufficient for their conversation.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, it's really interesting because what I learned about myself in my process was not that I was a people pleaser. What I did was I said yes to what everybody else wanted in my life.
Hmm.
That was what I took on. Oh, I'm going to say yes to this. You want me to go to this university? Yes. You want me to be in this program? Yes. You want me to, uh, and it's part of the reason I married my first husband, because the thing was graduate high school, go to university, get a job teaching. It had to be a teaching job, get married and have babies. Well, I had done one, two, and three. And so I looked at the list. Okay, now it's time to get married and then start having children. So I married this
Hmm.
guy. And our marriage broke up because he had an affair. But I was equally culpable for the demise of our marriage because I married him because he was the next thing on the list.
Hmm. Hmm.
And boy, that took so much forgiveness for myself and forgiveness for him, and then I kept the pattern going because when I met my now husband, he was the one who said, "Oh, you should be a financial advisor." And we were dating and we were heading toward marriage, and I thought, "Oh, if I don't do this, he's not going to love me, and we're not going to get married." So yes, I'll go do that.
Hmm.
And then when I woke up, because there was definitely a moment where I woke up and I started advocating for myself and I stepped into my self-agency, I realized what the pattern was, that I was saying yes to everybody else. And now I say yes to me first. And then I examine everything from that place.
Hmm. So what does it look like when people are working with you?
It can be a couple of different ways. I have one-on-one work that I do with clients. That's private work. It's very intense, and we can work together for, a couple of months to a couple of years, and anything in between, whatever works out best for you. What I needed when I was going through my experience, my dark night of the soul experience, I needed guidance and direction, and I couldn't find any. And I couldn't everything I found was on the terms of, how to be a good wife, how to be the perfect wife, blah, blah, blah. And that wasn't what I was looking for. And the people who were out there, the Tony Robbins and the Oprahs and the Deepaks, and it didn't speak to me, okay, at
Hmm.
all. I needed something a little meatier. I didn't need the pop psychology stuff. So I have created a membership. It's called the Transforming Force, and it's everything I needed during that time on a do-it-yourself, a DIY basis. I provide the content and the material, and you're able to work through it in a very safe space in your home, in the park, while you're running, whatever it is, for yourself to do those deep dives at a personal level. And then once a month, we're building community around this. Once a month, we come together with a monthly gathering. That is a great place to start your work with me because
Hmm.
I'm going to provide for you tools that you can use. And I keep talking about creating that toolbox for yourself. to be able to work through a lot of these things so that when you do come to work with me, if you do on a one-on-one basis, you've already done a whole lot of the work that we would do otherwise.
That's fantastic. And so what are some of the triggers or signs that the membership or the one-on-one would be the right option for people?
Well, I like to tease and say, if you've been to Tony Robbins conferences, if you're following Gabby Bernstein or Mel Robbins, or you listen to Brene Brown and you've read all the books and you're still not there, then come talk to me. And, you know, there's something happening in the personal development world, especially the social media personal development world. And I have two terms that I like to use. One is toxic positivity, and the other one is toxic gratitude. And I know everybody listening to us has thumbed through Instagram and seen those, oh, if you just fill in the blank, you'll be fill in the blank, right? That's toxic positivity because that's not true. And someone who's really struggling, who is in that dark place, who might be dealing with anxiety or depression or grief or working through trauma and maybe not even realize that, they look at that and they think there's something wrong with them. And so that sets up a shame and guilt cycle. What's wrong with me that I can't just fill in the blank and then be fill in the blank? What's wrong with me? You know, so that causes a further downward spiral. So that's toxic positivity. The other thing I really don't like is the toxic gratitude. Oh, just write down 3 things you're grateful for at the end of the day. Oh, start your day by being grateful. Yes, those are great practices when you're in that space.
But if you can't find the
if
space,
you can't find it, it sets up that same shame cycle that the toxic positivity sets up. So I don't use those as examples. I don't enjoy seeing those. I think those are more harmful than they are helpful.
I like how you laid that out too. I can see how it delineates the pieces. So if people are curious and they want to just see if it's a good fit, how do people get in touch with you?
So the easiest way is to go to my website, and I'll just give you this caveat. I'm not in love with my website, and it's a slow process. I'm doing some changes on it, but it's sufficient for now. It's my name, judithrichey.com, and Richey is spelled Richey, judithrichey.com. There's a button on there that you can schedule a coffee chat with me. There's some information about my membership there. The easiest thing to do is just sit down and have a coffee chat with me. I'm going to sell you a $10,000 package. I don't even have $10,000 packages. My membership is $47 a month. You know, it's lunch. You know, just come and have a conversation with me. And if I'm not the right person for you, I'm going to give you some ideas or some contacts of people to go talk to. I'm also recently on Substack, which I am loving Substack. I've gone off of Instagram and TikTok. That's not my thing. My nervous system doesn't enjoy them. But you can find me at the Richey Method on Substack, and I write a long article once a week, and then I post little notes throughout the day, the rest of the weeks. And then on LinkedIn, you can find me at Judith Richey, A Force for Transformation.
Wonderful. So I remember, you are not broken and you do not need to be fixed.
Correct.
And Judith is a force of transformation for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This has been such a lovely conversation. Thank you for sharing your personal thoughts as well as how you are making such a difference for people. And I encourage everyone that says, geez, this sounds like something I might need to ... reach out to you and see if it's a good fit.
Thank you, Jean. I am so honored to be able to visit with your audience today and with you. And we make a great team. So thank you.
We do really well together. Thank you so much for listening today. Today's show was sponsored by Seaside Solutions, my financial services company. As a business owner, it's easy to be pulled in many different directions, and often taking care of yourself plummets to the bottom of the list. For me, I find myself outside to reground. My time outdoors helps me manage my day more effectively and be more present for my clients. Through this, Discover Rising Tides was born. At Seaside Solutions, we truly believe that education is the foundation of financial wellness. Our primary focus is to provide guidance that is designed to help you achieve your long-term financial goals and visions. Working with a plan allows space for doing more things that you love, like being outside to make the inside better. If I can help you create or realign your plan, or if you would like to be added to my weekly newsletter, please let me know. This week's topic was 5 ways to set more achievable goals. Your referral means the big, beautiful world to me. And if I can help, please let me know. And thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.